We've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA. Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Check this out. Buyer demand is still smoking hot out there in this market, at least in Chicago Metro. And I'm going to guess probably in a lot of other larger metro and even smaller to mid-size markets. And I got a couple of examples to kind of underscore that whole idea that, you know, the market is slowing down, prices are dropping, but buyer demand is still smoking hot out there. We're going to get into that in a minute. My name's Larry Shakman. I am a broker for 24 years, title agent, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour on the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. Dylan Kramer is going to join us here in a minute from Neighborhood Loans, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. A couple of quick notes I want to make, and that is, one, if you'd like to hop in on the live stream with any comments or questions, right on the screen there is the URL. Just plug that into your browser and we'll get you on, and you can ask us whatever questions you have or talk about whatever's on your mind regarding real estate, and we can jump right into it. Remember, we're streaming live right now on the Real Estate Radio Show podcast group on Facebook. And also we are streaming live on YouTube and LinkedIn at my personal site at Larry Shakman. So be sure to tune in if you want there. And of course, you can drop a comment here if you're watching us on either of those platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Let's see what else. So what's the question of the day? Where do you think rates are going? We're going to talk to Dylan about that, see where they are. I think rates have pretty much remained flat over recently, but we'll get into that with Dylan a little bit. We got some great guests coming up. We got Randy Langendorfer coming up on June 8th. By the way, we'll be back in the studio at WCPT 8:20 a.m. out of Chicago. We'll be broadcasting live from there as of June 1st. And so be sure to join us on June 1st. And on June 8th, we'll have Randy Langendorfer on. Randy is going to talk to us about fractional real estate investing. And that's basically just investing in real estate without kind of driving the bus. You're a passenger on the bus. You are benefiting from the short-term and long-term financial goals that you have with that specific piece of property, but you don't necessarily have to be the one making sure the furnace is fixed and the boiler's fixed and everything else. So that's going to be interesting. Let's bring Dylan on now and see what's up in his life. Dylan, what's going on?
How are you?
How you doing?
I am, I'm on the mend, man. I'm on the mend. I am
rolling
along, putting one foot in. Well, I'm not really putting one foot in front of the other. I'm only using one leg. It's another week in life in the lending business, and it was definitely interesting. So I would tell you that things are, as you said, interestingly busy. Although I don't know that translates to a ton of deals. And I think that's the most fascinating thing is we really are, I don't know about your side of it, and it's definitely something for us to talk about. Struggling is too strong a word, but I would tell you every deal is challenging to come together, to get under contract. I have a buyer out in the Joliet-ish area, Joliet Plainfield. First-time buyer trying to buy a condo townhouse somewhere between $175,000 and $200,000. She's on offer number 8.
Yeah. What price range?
Couldn't 175 to 200. I mean, it's pretty limited. It's first-time buyer. Like everything she goes for, there's 10 other offers.
Condo, townhome type buyer.
Yeah. And first-time buyer, condo, townhouse. Like, I mean, she's solid, but some of these offers have been cash, and I don't know if they're really cash, or they're going to ride in with a mortgage afterward, or there's family money. Sometimes it comes in as like, we'll buy the place, then you finance it, but we'll at least get it under control. Like it's a super challenging market at that price point, and I'm sympathetic to her plight. She's frustrated.
That is a tough price point.
Oh, yeah.
Anything under 300, I'm taking, and I've got a couple of examples regarding buyer demand still being smoking hot. And what you're saying is another good example of that, contract number 8.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question the demand is still in the market relative to the supply. I think the interesting thing, I think the business is getting right-sized, Larry. I think one of the things, we've talked so much about the NAR settlement ad nauseum, and I don't necessarily want to hearken that in, but I think that one of the results that will happen as whatever your side of the business's new rules and regulations come to bear is less people will retain their real estate license to just kind of have it and hang around with it because it'll be hard and it won't be worth it. And so when they head for the exits, much like our lending side of the business, there's 70% loans in there were 3 years ago. There's also 70% lenders, 70% less lenders. So things are kind of okay.
Yeah, balancing out.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I've said it before, and this isn't a knock on the real estate industry or anything else. There's too many realtors. There's just a ton. I mean, I think there's like 1.5 million realtors right now. So, I mean, there's a lot. And listen, a good percentage of them are part-time. And I don't think it's fair to the consumer that they're buying their biggest purchase in their life, or in most cases, and they're not being represented by somebody that does this full time, has some experience under their belt, has been through many different scenarios. And, I mean, it's a complicated process. It's not like buying a home was 30 years ago.
For sure. It's all true. But as we are really talking about the heat check in the market, right? Kind of transitioning back to that, I think that it's interesting that the realtor count is right now the thing that's kind of out of whack. The lender count seems on point for the market.
Yeah.
And the buyer count seems on point for the market. But like we've talked about before, there's not enough sellers.
Yeah, not enough sellers. And we can go back to the fact that a lot of these sellers are sitting on 2% and 3% mortgages, interest rates. And listen, I get it. They don't want to sell out.
Well, you know what? The funny thing, Larry, the funny thing about that is, I live in an area of town that has a lot of teardowns over the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the houses that get torn down were ranches, and they had 800, 900 square feet, 1,000, 1,200 square feet when they were built in the 50s and 60s. And then at some point in the 80s, somebody slapped on a wacky addition. And you've seen houses like this in your day, right? You're like,
never.
Why did they come in and like blow out the back door of the garage and put a little throughway, and there's like a half bath there and some sort of spare room or better? And the answer is they had a 4% mortgage in the 70s and the 80s, and they could only borrow on an equity line at 14 to finance the rehab rather than move when rates were 14%. Now, rates are not 14% today. But the point is, people are trying to figure out ways to stay with rates where they're at if you're sellers. And so bringing it back to the point, and I think the thing we should spend a little time on today is what do we do if you're a buyer to get after it and get into this business? And I have another segue for that topic for buyers as well, but let's get into it now. I'll bring it up.
We'll get into it. Yeah. I mean, bottom line is, if I were a buyer in this market with no experience whatsoever, or just a small amount of experience in real estate, buying a home, whatever, I would definitely be represented, no matter what that cost, no matter what it took, because believe me, it's going to be more expensive not to be represented than to be represented, in my opinion.
You're 100% right. Let me give you a numbers example, a real numbers example. Now, it's a seller side example, but the same thing can happen, probably not to the same degree, but the same sort of thing can happen to buyers.
Yeah.
So I know a guy in the business, and he posted this on his Facebook feed. And
My
he's
dog's in here, so if my dog
Yeah.
starts barking, I'll let
all
her
right.
know.
My dog's an idiot. It's
We
fine.
won't have that problem at the radio station.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is that he works out of market, so it's not a Chicago market. He's got a previous client, calls him up, says, "Hey, I'm selling my house. I need to get pre-approved to buy another." He's like, "Great. Who's your agent?" He's like, "I'm not using an agent." He's like, "All right. Well, are you selling your current place?" Yeah. I'm not using an agent. I'm doing it, and all the stereotypes and tropes come out of this guy's mouth, right? All they do is stick it on the MLS. They don't really do any work. My house is better than the neighbors. It's going to be great. I can handle it. It's no problem. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, he gets a contract for the sale of the house. And lo and behold, on the other side of the transaction, he's got a fairly big operation in a fairly small town.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the buyer to do the loan. So now part of that is because the buyer comes through the open house by the FSBO and says, yeah, I'll talk to your lender. So he gets the loan.
Right.
Places under contract for $425. We're signed off. We're going. Deal's done. Appraisal comes in at $500,000.
Oh, that's crazy because, hey, keep talking for a minute. I'm going to let my.
Yeah, of course. So, we end up in a situation where this transaction goes and the seller effectively says, "I don't want realtor representation. I can do it myself." All they do is put it on the MLS, and it ends up costing him $75,000 in purchase price. Now, you could now he doesn't have to pay a real estate commission, but
Right.
even at 6% full commission, which we've talked about again ad nauseum on this show, that's $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'd have paid the 30 to a professional, you'd have sold for 75 more, netting 45 more in your pocket.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I mean, you got to factor all these things in. Hey, keep going.
nice. There you go. So that's a key thing to factor in is, sometimes it's impossible to see. And I think it's a really interesting example of getting to see what actually happened or happens when you do this. And because so often these decisions get made in a vacuum by people when they're buying and selling. They're like, "I don't need an agent. I don't need representation. I can do it myself." Whatever that discussion looks and feels like for folks, they don't normally all these things, because there are so many hands in the pie of every real estate transaction in terms of handing it off from person, better yet, I guess, so many stages on the assembly line of the real estate transaction that you don't see all of it every time. So this was a shining and glaring example of, you can see what a mess this guy made.
Underpricing your home. I tell people when pricing your home, for me, and this has worked remarkably well, the best way to price your home is either right at market value or a little bit under market value.
I think that's the current market,
possible.
right? I think that in this market, Larry, where there are so many buyers, that it's actually, I was reading an article on this, and I kind of feel like philosophically it's a great place to be. And that's the following spot. Hey, we're worth X. We're going to put it on the market at X minus 5%. And most of the people who are searching their houses, even if they have agents on Zillow, in their MLS search, whatever, the property comes up on their radar. Ding, new listing, new available property.
That's right.
Oh my God, it's underpriced. We got to go right now.
Exactly.
And now you have a bidding war.
Dylan, I'll tell you something. You don't even have to do it 5% under market value. You could do it 2% under market value or 1%. The point is, the more eyes you get on the property when you first come on the market, the better chance you have of generating multiple offers, generating a lot of interest, and selling that property. Very often, I will sell properties in the pre-marketing stage before it officially hits the market with multiple offers on it.
Yeah.
So,
And I think
I mean,
that's really the key, Larry, is that we find ourselves in a situation where people don't appreciate that. I shouldn't say this. We've talked about this a little bit too, but I've come to believe, sometimes you come to believe things over time. I have a story about that relative to refereeing. People who are selling houses are from a human nature standpoint, like, I don't want to put it, I want to list it higher because maybe one person will pay me more than it's worth. Probably not. But that reticence to go to market at a competitive price point rather than we could always come down. Well,
it's
but
the exact,
you don't see what you're
wrong
missing.
way to do it.
You don't see what you're missing, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
And you just don't see the intangible. You don't see the people behind their computer are like, ding, new house, overpriced. And they move on.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that's the exact wrong way to sell a house or anything for that matter.
For sure.
You don't overprice it knowing you can always come down. I'm pretty sure, obviously Apple doesn't negotiate on the cost of their watches or telephones, but, they price it so they're going to get and they're having a problem now, but they price it so they're going to get a bunch of people pre-ordering it. The price doesn't matter. They want the watch, they want the phone, so same thing with a house. You have to price it to get as many eyes on the property as possible, and that is the main way you are going to drive your price up. That's the bottom line. You just have to have the courage, if you will. I'm not going to use the word I would use.
Let's just say intestinal fortitude, right?
Yeah, thank you. To do that and listen to the people you're working with.
I think it's oddly a better gamble than you think it is if you do what we just talked about. If you come to market at or slightly below the right price in this market, this may change in 6 weeks or 6 months.
Absolutely.
But we're here today. If you come to market with a quality property and you're like, all right, it's worth X, we're going to go X minus 1% or 2%. And that's your better chance of having somebody overpay.
Yeah.
By 2, 3,
whatever.
5%.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than you asking for the 2, 3, 5% and crossing your finger. Like, don't get me wrong. We have examples, you get out into like your term, bread and butter housing in Naperville or Schaumburg or whatever. And you got a 350 house. Could it in theory sell for 360, 365? Sure. It could. And you could ask 360 and it might sell for the 360, even though most of the comps are 350. But you'll have a much bigger frenzy if you put it on at 345.
That's exactly right. No, there's no question about that. And it's not just about how you price it. It's about how you market it, how you pre-market it. It's about your agents' sphere of buyers they're working with and their network. We just sold the 9th highest sold property ever in Wheaton. And we did that.
Is that the place we were using for the example of staging?
No.
Okay.
We did that directly with our inventory of buyers before it ever came on the market. Right. We also, my partner did. He just found an off-market property for a buyer he's been working with for a year. Right. $2.9 million in Oak Brook, wasn't on the market. We saw that it was coming on the market through our network. We called up the agent and said, hey, can we get in here? Blah, blah, blah. We got in and we have a $2.9 million cash offer on this property.
Beautiful thing.
But now I want to segue real quick into this market is smoking hot in terms of buyer demand. And that 2.9 listing that we have a cash offer on, which, you know, I mean, it's a slam dunk offer. Here's the only problem. Remember, $2.9 million listing in Oak Brook. 13 showings on it in the first 2 days.
God.
Multiple offers on it in the first day. And, you know, I got a call yesterday from the agent saying, hey, would your buyer, excuse me, would your buyer be willing to buy it as is? And of course, we know what as is means. It means, yeah, we're going to buy it as long as, you know, we don't do an inspection and we find out the, you know, something's going horribly wrong with it. Then we can negotiate that. But our intention is to buy it as is. But my point is that $2.9 million home, 2.9 cash, 250 grand down. We're buying it as is. There were multiple offers on the property within 2 days. Huge demand for that property. I mean, an amazing property sitting on 1.9 acres in Oak Brook.
I get it, but for all the talk about, you know, inflation and challenging market and tough times in the world, to have that kind of demand for a property that is legitimately that expensive.
Well, here's the other thing. The luxury market is running probably about 5 to 7% hotter than the typical, I don't even want to call it bread and butter market, but typical market.
Yeah.
Now here, I'll give you another example. A friend of mine who's moving back here, we put an offer in on a $549,000 home in Geneva. And we went $15,000 over list.
Right.
Buying it as is. And there were 15 other offers on the property within like 3 days. Now they had to rescind their offer because they want to sell their houses before they, even though they were buying without a contingency, they want to move their houses before they purchase. So they have a little bit more leverage, without having to take any major risk.
Sure.
But there's another example at a completely different price point, $549,000, where there were multiple offers on the property.
Dude, I would tell you
showings in 2 days.
That 550 price point.
That's the new bread and butter.
The competition there is insane.
It's insane. And so tomorrow I'm going out, and this is what we do on our team. Like, we'll work with anybody. We work with people selling and buying $2, $4, $5 million homes. And we work with people that are looking for $300,000 homes in you know, Crestview or wherever. So we're Crest Hill, excuse me. So we're all over the place. So tomorrow I'm going out with a buyer that's looking in that 300 and under range, which, you know, you run into a lot more things with those. It's almost always, unless it's been sitting on the market, which means there's probably a problem with it. In that price point, you're going to run into multiple offers. You're often going to run into some things you might need to fix on the property. So it's a whole different kind of dynamic. But I'm telling you guys, the buyer demand out there is huge. And if you're buying a home, you got to get with someone like Dylan, get pre-approved, get yourself just really dialed in so that you can go confidently make an offer and feel good if you lose that home with the best offer you can make. You have to do that. Otherwise you have no chance in this market.
Larry, it brings me to a thing I actually do want to talk about a lot. And speaking of pre-approval, the value of pre-approval is important, but I think never more so than right now. And I'm going to bring up something we have not discussed previously. It was released this week that in the first quarter of 2023, the average lender, the average mortgage company, Neighborhood Loans, Benchmark, G-Rate, across the industry, lost $1,056 for every loan they originated across the industry.
Wow.
That's after sale for servicing rights, after paying the originator commission, after paying everybody who has to work on the assembly line of the loan. And so what we're seeing is interesting.
Layla obviously agrees with you.
Pardon?
My dog obviously agrees with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's offensive to lose this kind of money. I mean,
it's crazy,
right? It's reality. And so lenders are, and you may say, look, I got no sympathy for lenders. And you know, like you all, and look, when the business is doing well, we do well. But, you know, the thing is, when it's challenging like this, it becomes a cascade of problems at the operation level. So not to get too into the weeds, but ultimately, if you turn around and you are working with a lender and their company is losing $1,000 a loan, you know what they're going to do? They're going to make damn sure they don't lose any more money by originating a loan that they can't sell or that has some other sort of problem. And so what they do is all the scrutiny on these loans, Larry, out of underwriting is as challenging as I've seen in 10 years. And it's because if you create a loan and remember, all the covenants on these loans have changed. 15 years ago, they were like, if you conspired to commit fraud against us, you'll buy the loan back. Well, that's a pretty high bar, right?
Yeah.
As a result of the crash and all the foreclosures, they basically now say, the lender agreements, if you originate the loan at lower than professional standards, you will buy the loan back. And it pretty much is open-ended. So you could have lenders wake up in 2027 and be like, hey, we're looking at this loan, XYZ loan on this house in Geneva, and we didn't get the March 31st pay stub. You're like, yeah, we got April 15th and April 30th. Well, we wanted March 31st. We're going to send you the loan back. Send us the $500,000 because they put 10% down on 550, right? Roughly. Just send us the $500,000. You're like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like,
right.
We'll just go back and get the pay stub. It was 3 years ago. No. Send us the $500,000. And they're within their right to do that.
Yeah.
So every T has to be crossed and every I has to be dotted. And underwriters are, they're not saying this out loud. Underwriters are under marching orders to make sure everything is buttoned up. Because if you're, and all the lenders are holding their breath like, hey, you're going to be the ones that beat the other guys. And when the profit turns, we'll be there. So they're dipping into their reserves. They're losing a little bit of money on every loan now, but that's not a sustainable business model.
No, it's not. I was going to say that
you have some sort of sketch, anything going on in your loan file to get pre-approved, and that you're going to
keep going with that. I'm going to go kill a dog.
Like if you don't do your pre-approval and do it right, you're jammed, absolutely jammed, because no lender in their right mind wants to make an underwriting accommodation in a market like this to get you onto or into a property that you might not be qualified for overall. The fact of the matter is there's just no way that you can, for the long run, sustain a business model that is losing, like I said, at least 4 figures per unit, every unit you close, and then moves on from there. That if you do a shoddy job originating a loan for a particular borrower, you're going to accelerate those losses. So
that's crazy, man. I was not aware of that. I was not aware of that they were losing on every loan.
And late last year, the previous quarter was like $300 a unit. So part of that is volume, right? Because you have a certain amount of fixed overhead. And in January, if you close 20% of the loans you did before, that accelerates. Like, I hear it, but it's not sustainable. And, I have a borrower now, he's trying to borrow $600,000 and he's pretty well to do. And he was like, he had some issues with his loan before. We need to get the 2024 taxes filed, which he did. So he killed the old loan, brought this one back, and he owns multiple properties. We have old HOA invoices, right, from November, December, because we were trying to do the loan originally in February. Now we're here. He's like, I sent you that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I need a March 24 HOA statement.
Exactly. We need
Like,
it updated.
he's like, I sent you that. Like, I don't want to. He's like, I don't want to send you that. And if they're going to insist on it, maybe I don't do the loan. I'm like, okay,
then don't do the loan.
Email me your cancellation notice. He's like, whoa.
Yeah,
like, I'm not kidding around, and no lender is.
Let me follow up on that real quick because so with this $2.9 million cash offer we made, obviously, when someone's not going to be financing.
By the way, I'm moving my screen.
What's that? There we go.
That's
better. Look at that. Yeah. Then they need a proof of funds that they have the money liquid to buy that property for cash. Well, we had previously received a proof of funds. However, it was an older proof of funds, so we needed an updated proof of funds. And this buyer was like, who has a lot of money and it's done very well for himself. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll get you that. So he called his financial guy and said, hey, shoot us over a new proof of funds, because you got to update these things constantly, especially if a closing gets dragged out, and a transaction gets dragged out. You have to do that. Hey, I want to, because we're talking about lenders losing money on every deal, which is insane. But I want to talk a little bit about, we talked about buyer demand. So I was looking at some stats, some general market stats, and these are according to Zillow. So I'm going to take them with a grain of salt, and I'm not saying that to be cute.
You know what the A in Zillow stands for, and I am being cute. You know what the A in Zillow stands for?
No.
Accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I take this with a grain of salt, because they lost $1 billion trying to flip and invest in properties, but that's okay. So according to Zillow, 56% of homeowners and renters are having problems making their housing payments, whether that's homeowners or renters. 56% are having problems making their payments, and they're cutting back expenses like vacations, major purchases, and they said here, even food. Now, the thing that makes me wonder about that is, while we're getting these stats from Zillow on, these homeowners and renters having problems making their monthly payment, we also know that consumer spending has gone up pretty decisively month after month. I think in the last 2 months, it's gone up pretty decisively.
Well, I'm going to give you two things because you say that, Larry, with a voice of skepticism. But I'm going to anecdotally agree with Zillow, which frightens me, but let's go. So here's the thing I'm going to tell you. I have multiple previous clients who in the last 2 or 3 months have called me. And a couple of them have their house on the market currently. And they are like, hey, I got my annual escrow analysis. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, why are they raising my payment? And so I will give you, a buddy of mine called me, and he does okay for himself. He's not struggling to make his payment. He's fuming angry. But here's his math, because I remember it specifically. He's got a house in the River Grove, Elmwood Park, Melrose Park area. His taxes went up. Cook County, they went up $250 a month, about $3,000 a year, right? Overall.
Wow.
His insurance went up another $100 a month, right? Because insurance is insane too. So,
insurance is one of the driving factors behind inflation.
For sure.
Yeah.
Car insurance and home insurance in particular.
Yes.
And that's largely driven by two factors, not to get too tangenty, but one is 2 years ago, we had all that explosion in cost of lumber and construction materials. That's still working its way through the system. Even though we're not at those high lumber prices, insurance companies paid out and lost money on those prices. So they have to readjust their rates. Second thing is that the roofing industry has kind of made in the last 5 years a lot of strides in the business model of knocking on people's doors and being like, hey, a storm blew through here and
Oh, yeah.
you should get a new roof.
Yep.
And so they bill it to your insurance company. And that's become, they use that as a funding conduit for a while. And insurance companies are now cracking down on that, but they're also building it into their pricing. So those two things combined are part of the problem. Now, with all that said, back to my example. This guy gets they're like, hey, you're short $5,800 in your escrow account.
Wow.
He's like, what? And the answer is actually, yeah, you are. And here's why. Even though your total increase is $250 a month between the taxes and insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got to pay that now,
Mm-hmm.
right? In 2024. But it ain't going down. So they don't have the money to pay it in 2024. They need it from you. That's $250 a month times 12 months, or about $6,000. But the bill's coming again next year at least this same rate. So they need it for next year too. So you take that $250 a month, now you double it. Now you're like, that's $500. But do you think it's really going to be exactly what it is now, or might it still go up 2, 3, 5% or more?
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, we need a little cushion. Call that another $50 or $80 a month. So legitimately, they're like, we need another $580 a month. Like we're not even.
And they'll, are
like,
they letting him?
Math.
Are they letting him split that up over 12 months?
Yeah. You can split it up over. And no, look, you could please send us $5,800, or pay an extra $2 or $580 a month or whatever it is for the next 12 months. Like you could choose, but he's like, I'm not sitting on $5,000. And why is this $580? Like what? This is insane. Well, if you're somebody who's already on a tight budget and you're getting whacked by inflation, one of the people who's selling their house, single mom, right? Her payment went up $800 a month. She's like, I can't turn around and pay $3,300 a month for this house out in the Schaumburg Hoffman area. And it's again, bread and butter type house, right? Like, I mean, it's $300,000 house, $280,000, $280,000
really? In Schaumburg.
I mean, she paid that a few years ago. It's probably a $350,000, $400,000 house now, right? But so she's made a lot of equity, and you'd be like, hey, you're killing it. But not if you're getting murdered by an $800 increase. And again, if your insurance is up and your taxes are up, and all of a sudden you're like, well, yeah, though, all that's legit, then they either need the lump sum or the payment increase. And some people can't stomach this payment increase. I will tell you, look, my escrow account, I mean, look, I'm blessed. I have a 2.75 mortgage. I do okay for myself. I live in a reasonably nice house in a reasonably nice area. My interest every month is just over $1,000. My principal reduction every month is just under $1,000. Between the two, they're like $1,998, right? Like it's right there. My escrow every month is $1,600.
Yeah.
$1,000, $1,600 for everybody else.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, the two things that are driving inflation right now, one of them is the housing market, because folks, prices are not going down. They are leveling off a little bit as far as rents go, but in some areas,
I think, Larry, the rent numbers are skewed by the short-term rentals. And what I mean by that is the air's coming out of the Airbnb market, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And that gets into the national statistics. I was talking to an investor buyer client of mine who's out shopping now. And he was like, he found a place in the Berwyn Cicero area that had three bedroom apartments in it. He's like, I could rent these for $2,400 a month each. Like that's inflation. Like, are you kidding? $2,400 for an apartment?
Rents have gone up decisively over the last 4 or 5 years.
So whatever the statistics are saying about rents coming down, I think is from a different part of the entire rental market calculation than just like I'm renting an apartment to live in a metro area.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I think the point I was making is rents are leveling off, not necessarily coming down a
For
lot,
sure.
but leveling off. But you make a good point, because we're in the distant past and even the recent past, and not too recent, but let's just say the distant past, renting was, you're renting an apartment
Right.
to live in, right?
Right.
And now there are all different types of rentals. There's Airbnbs, there's midterm rentals, there's short-term rentals, there are corporate rentals, there's these corporate investors that are buying tens of thousands of properties for no other reason than to hold them and rent them, and in the future somewhere sell them. But all of this affects the rental market. So it's a much different rental market than it was several years back.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think at some point, Larry, we should spend a little time on a show. Maybe that's a Wednesday thing. Maybe that's, maybe that's here on a Saturday. Over the next few weeks, we should talk about these midterm rentals. They're just over the horizon. That'll be the next hot thing.
Yeah. So Randy Langendorfer, who's coming on June 8th, when we'll be back in the studio, he is going to talk about fractional real estate investing. And what he's doing is he's building a townhome community in Texas, I believe in Houston or possibly in the Austin area, which are two very, very hot areas. Houston is always a hot real estate area.
Yeah, for sure.
So he is building with a developer a large townhome community that he then gets fractional investors in that invest 100,000, 50,000, 150,000 in, and they, like I said earlier, they profit from the short-term gain, and then the eventual, short-term gain, meaning as they hold the property and all that, as the value of the property goes up and the property gets paid off, somewhere down the line, they're going to exit that property and they're going to sell it and make a nice profit on it. So that's fractional investing. And I think that also, like I talked about with these corporate investors that are either building these build to rent communities or buying these swaths of, single family homes to rent and hold. That also, the other thing is that affects inventory as well.
Oh, dude, it's a dramatic effect on inventory.
Yeah.
And we're not a market that is as affected by that. My friends in Atlanta, they turn around and they were in a situation a couple of years ago where they were working with their agents to build marketing pieces that was like, we know they're offering you cash and a quick close or a slow close, depending on what works for you. But here's why you can't sell to these corporations, because they're never going to put the house on the market again. Rents are going to go through the roof, and you're sending all this money's coming from a hedge fund, and eventually you got to live in this market when the prices go up, because the hedge fund is just going to raise prices. And we're the local lender and the local real estate agent. We're working with local buyers who want to live here and support your kid's baseball team and support the schools and blah, blah, blah. And, all this stuff. And to a large degree, the marketing piece felt a little bit like a guilt trip piece, but it's all true as well. That, there's a sense of community that is lost when these hedge funds come in and do the corporate buying thing. And at one point, there was a new subdivision being built in their market. This probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, 400 new homes. And one of the hedge funds came in and was just like, we'll just take them all. Cancel all your contracts. We'll pay whoever your buyers are. We will pay them whatever their inconvenience fee is, or their contract.
And this was in the Atlanta area?
Yeah. They just bought the whole subdivision, 400 plus houses.
That's crazy, man. I mean, that is going to definitely affect inventory.
Yeah, it's less tangible to us, but in some of those hotter markets where there's a lot more new construction, part of this is our Chicago and our Illinois market overall is I don't want to say hostile to new construction, but it's not friendly to new construction.
Yeah.
Some of these markets that are a little more friendly to new construction, certainly these Texas markets, Atlanta, Georgia is one of them. Yeah, that's absolutely a potential thing.
Yeah. So a couple of other stats that Zillow came up with, and I agree with you on that, in terms of, I'm not really arguing this fact, or I'm not really skeptical of it, because we know people are having issues paying their rent or mortgage. We know that. We know that a lot of people out there, there's a lot of people doing well, but there's an equal number of people struggling and finding it hard to make ends meet. And that's because of this sticky inflation and, some other things. But so some of the things that Zillow also made mention of is that auto delinquencies are at a 13-year high, and credit card delinquencies rose 50% in 2023. But at the same time, credit card spending is up and consumer spending is up. So, I mean, all of these facts and all these numbers are like butting up against one another.
At the end of the day, Larry, I as a student of personal finance, I don't know that I entirely agree with that assessment. And here's why. People will continue to put stuff on their credit card for what they think is their necessities in life. Right now, they may be mistaken about what necessities are. If it's, the kids' travel baseball fee every month, or the dance lessons, or, their $240 lifetime fitness thing. Like, I got to get to the gym. Like, my fitness is important to me. They'll keep letting those cards get hit and keep running those balances, and figure that, like, I'll figure the payment thing out later, until you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. And that's a really good point you bring up, because what they're finding with younger people is they are really, really buying into this buy now, pay later loan. And that could be dangerous, in other words. Yeah. I mean, you got to be really careful about what you do, especially if in the near future, you're going to be looking to buy a home or a condo or whatever.
I would tell you, Larry, it's good personal financial management to minimize your credit card usage, especially on a recurring fee basis, to stuff that you are 100% certain is going to come in under your income level on a monthly basis, and live your life cash. Like, and it's not, that's less mortgage related and real estate related, then you'll sleep better at night and have an easier time in life related if you handle your personal finances. Where, look, we all understand you've got necessities, then you've got needs, and then you got wants. And at the end of the day, some of those people get confused as to which is which, right? Your gym membership you see as a necessity, not as much.
Well, you know what? Listen, you got to stay healthy. And I agree with people, listen, I've been a member of health clubs that cost me $150, $200 a month. And I've been a member of health clubs, which I am now, that I do the same exact thing at, that cost me $15 a month.
Right.
And I do the same exact routine that I did at the other one. And I loved the nice opulence of the club I was paying $175 a month at. And I love the hot tub and going there at 6 a.m. and all that, and sitting at their outside hot tub in the sun. It's awesome. But you know what? I couldn't anymore feel that it was a good value proposition.
There's always a line there, right? And those, and look, those are all big corporate owned companies, right? Whether it's Lifetime or LA Fitness or any one of their competitors, Fitness Formula, et cetera. They get you in and they're like, hey, it's, and it doesn't matter what today's rate is, right? It's $150 a month. It's $199 a month. And in 2 years, it's $30 a month higher. And in 5 years, it's $50 a month higher. And a never ending creep. And they're like, well, more luxury. We're doing this. We remodeled that. Like, look, and if you can swing it and your fitness is that important, there's a place where that value proposition works for you. And you just informed me, hey, you know what? I got to the line, and everybody's line's a little different. But at the end of the day, your point from a personal finance standpoint is you can get what you really need for far less than you think.
That's exactly right. You have to drill it down, just like all the news we consume every day and all the misinformation we get, no matter what subject we're listening to, not to get into that. But the reality of it is you just got to drill it down and educate yourself. Don't be intellectually lazy. Drill it down and form your own opinions.
Correct.
Yeah. So listen, I know that you're headed to a home buyer seminar that you're doing in the office, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so give everybody a little
Sure. So, just follow my Facebook feed. I mean, well, obviously here you can find me. I'm on the link. Next Saturday, May 4th, 10:30 in the morning at the Office of Neighborhood Loans, 1333 Butterfield Road in Downers Grove. We're going to have a couple hour seminar for the home buyers, talking a little bit about the real estate side of things, the mortgage side of things. We expect some folks who always show up at these will show up with credit challenges. So one of my friends, Jim Drosky from Illinois Credit Services, is going to be there. He does a great job. Only legitimate kind of credit repair person I know of.
Yeah.
Because
you gotta be careful.
It's a really grimy business, right? I mean, that credit report, here's the thing. Jim's great, does a great job, and really does right by his clients. But at the end of the day, that's a difficult business to make work because you have clients who are out there engaging in the credit system every day on the front end, and you're still trying to fix stuff on the back end. And so there's space for bad actors to take advantage of that for clients. Jim's not one of those guys. So he'll be there and talk about how it works if you really do it right, which I think it'll have some value. And look, you know what? We're also going to spend a lot of time discussing how to win in this market. You know, we're going to spend a lot of time on renovation loans because that's one way to make inventory happen. Mm-hmm. You know, houses that don't look like they're available inventory now can become that. So again, look for the link on my social media. Send me a DM if you're finding the video here. Or call or text 630-708-7088, and I'll get you signed up for the home buyer seminar. A lot of value going to be delivered next week.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, buyers really need to dial in. This is not a market for the faint of heart when it comes to buying a home, and make sure you're represented not only on the real estate side by a broker that you know, like, and trust that's going to have your back, but also by a mortgage broker like Dylan that is going to put you in a position to win the day. Because let me tell you something, it's frustrating for everybody involved when you go through 8, 9 different offers. And, especially to the buyer, it is extremely frustrating. It really is. So make sure you get pre-approved. Talk to Dylan. Talk to, a mortgage broker, again, that you know, like, and trust. Get that solid pre-approval, not a pre-qual, a pre-approval, so that you can go in there confidently, make that offer, and get that.
So important and so critical, Larry, because like I said earlier in the call, but I just want to kind of reiterate it or clarify it. If you're with lenders in a spot where whether or not they can make money on your transaction is at issue, they are going to turn around and scrutinize your finances in a way that has probably not been done in a decade. So you might as well do that up front and make sure you have all your ducks in a row. It'll save you time, headache, and energy. For you, it also save you money, right? Like if you waste $500 on a home inspection and $500 on an appraisal, and you were never getting approved in the first place, like that's on you.
Yeah, it's the only way you're going to know exactly what you can afford and confidently move forward. Without that, let's put it this way. If you're going in unrepresented by a real estate broker and without a solid pre-approval, go to Great America. You're going to spend your money better because there's no point in looking for a home. I'm telling you, in this market, if you're a buyer and you're not represented, you have very little chance of getting that thing across the finish line.
My man, you are 100% right.
Yeah. All right. Listen, have a great day.
Awesome.
Do not hurt your other knee because
no, I gotta go do my at-home physical therapy as soon as I hang up with you. I gotta go do the exercises.
Good. We know that's fun.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing I'm going to tell you. I had my follow-up, not to bore you with my medical, but they found far more injury in my knee than I was signing up for when I got the surgery. So I'll be on crutches for a week or two and I'll be back by 30 days. No.
Not so much.
I'll be on crutches for a month and it might take 6 months to get back to normal. So we'll see how it goes. Keep your fingers crossed for me.
Take care of yourself and
Thanks,
we'll
buddy.
talk again soon.
You got it.
Okay, bud. See you. All right, everybody. We are going to wrap it up here shortly. I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us again on the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. Remember, starting June 1st, we are going to be back live on the air at 8:20 a.m. It will still be streaming on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, but we'll be streaming from the studios of WCPT 8:20 a.m. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining us. And remember, if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest, give me a call. My partner and I will absolutely either get you in that property that you're looking for through our network, or, that's a big deal. Is the broker you're working with, what kind of network do they have? What kind of access do they have to off-market properties that aren't yet on the market, but will shortly be coming on the market? This is very important stuff in this kind of market with such a depleted inventory. So, give me a call, 630-921-0611, if I can help you with anything when it comes to buying, selling, or investing. And we will get you pre-approved and in a great position to purchase that dream home you're looking for. And if you're looking to sell, same thing. We can help you with that, obviously, as well. All right, guys, I am headed out to a open house at a $3.5 million listing in Marseilles, Illinois. This is an amazing property, about 11,000 square feet, private fishing pond on the property, sitting on 20 acres, just an amazing property. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you soon.
Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now go to trustedagentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience. Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now go to trustedagentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience.